What's up, YouTube? Kristo here with another Fragcast, and today I'm going to be discussing the world of indie perfume with indie perfumer Victor Wong. Victor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Zoologist, your fragrance house?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm initially from Hong Kong, and I moved to Canada at the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
I've been living in Toronto since then.
Okay.
I started my company in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about 2 years now.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Zoologist quickly.
Well, Zoologist, I would consider it as my midlife crisis.
Okay.
The reason is because in around 2009, I went back to school. I went to a college and studied 3D graphics.
Okay.
I've been a video game graphics designer for almost 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was not doing 3D graphics. I knew 3D, but not in depth.
Okay.
But I've been working on Flash games, online bingo games, and casino games for a long time. And I felt really bored. And I felt like 3D is the way to go. So I went to a college and studied 3D video game graphics.
Okay.
So I graduated. My goal was to, I have more skills. I would imagine I'll, get paid better or find better position. But I was really disappointed to find out, it's actually my fault, actually. I was very disappointed to find out that they would not count my previous work experience. They said, okay, you are a newbie. You just enter the 3D, graphics world. So we will not count any of your past experience. So, and your starting salary is this.
Okay.
Which was lower than my first job 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So pretty much I paid money to upgrade myself to downgrade my salary. So, eventually I found a company that makes children's games. So the salary is okay, but I was still kind of upset about this. And it was like a really big company, and there are lots of politics going on. Sure. And I was really frustrated. I'm not very sure about my career. So at that time, I felt like I need to do a project that I could say is my own. And in 2013, I discovered the world of niche perfumes.
It's a dangerous world.
Yes, very dangerous. I stayed at a hotel in Montreal, Fairmont, actually. They have Le Labo toiletries. I think it's Rose 31.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was smelling and said, wow, this is pretty great. I've never smelled anything like this. And I started doing research, and I found out there's Base Note, there's Fragrantica, there's Facebook groups. It was, wow, this is amazing. And there's also Lucky Scent. Like you always find Lucky Scents when you do a search on Google. And I started ordering samples and buying perfumes. This is all exciting, but it's very expensive. And I bought quite a few bottles, and I felt like, wow, this is dangerous. And I wonder if I could start my own company. I have some ideas, but I have no idea how to do it.
Okay.
So I went to a Base Note forum, and I posted the questions. The question, I think it was, do you know how much a perfumer makes, or how much does it cost to make a perfume? Because I was kind of interested in starting my own company, but I just don't know how expensive it would be. And of course, no one would answer except two persons, which is Chris Bartlett and Paul Kyler.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are indie perfumers, and it was like, yeah, we can help you, create your own line. So, and that happened. So I started doing a lot of research. I go to different places and have to find bottles, packaging, like everything. So in a year, I launched my perfumes, 3 perfumes.
What were the first 3 from your house? What were the first ones that came out?
The first 3 were Beaver by Chris Bartlett, Panda and Rhinoceros by Paul Kyler.
Okay. And I also want to mention very recently, just within the last few weeks, Zoologist actually ended up taking home an award from the Art and Olfaction Fragrance Awards in Los Angeles. You actually won an award for Bat, which is your newest fragrance, is it not?
Yes, it was like a dream.
Yeah.
Everything happened so quick, and when I got the email from them, you were nominated. It's like, wow, this is unreal. Because the competition was pretty fierce. I entered the competition the year before. I didn't get nominated, but this year finally, it was like, wow, this is happening. It's like I going to LA for the show. It happened so fast, and I'm really happy that it won. It meant a lot for me.
Yeah, and and the funny thing is, I actually contacted you to do the podcast before it was kind of public, or before many people knew that you were nominated. And you even said, wait a couple weeks, and knock on wood, I might have a pretty cool story to tell. And lo and behold, here you are. So, and it's huge. I think it's really big. Not just for the brand, but also for indie perfume in Canada. Like, there's not many indie perfume houses in Canada, especially ones that are award-winning, which is pretty cool.
It's true, but actually last year the winners from Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah, her brand was, what was that one? Monsoulage, I think. I could not pronounce anything in French.
Okay.
But her winning perfume was Eau de Celery. So the opening smells like celery, and then it develops into a proper perfume. It's very interesting. Yeah, so, but back to the award, I think it's very important to me, because not just that it has opened some doors, but is that I have met a whole bunch of perfumers and also some Facebook fans that we are all on Facebook, and then we just exchange through posts and comments, and we know each other just by their avatar pic and maybe the kids pic, but we never know what they look like.
That's totally true. Yeah, very true.
So it was amazing. I finally met Ellen, the perfumer of Bats, in person, because I have never met her. I have never talked to her over the phone at all.
So it was just done all electronically.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like a miracle. Yeah, it's crazy. And I also met Josh Meyer of Imaginary Authors and many other perfumers. So
wow, that's great. And congratulations. I am truly happy for you, and proud of the Canadian indie perfume scene. Bringing that home is pretty big.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I also need to mention another huge thing that also happened quite recently. One of the most famous fragrance reviewers in the world, Luca Turin, gave Bat a 4-star on his Perfumes I Love WordPress blog, which is amazing. You can check it out just at perfumesIlove.wordpress.com. And anyone who knows perfume knows Luca Turin. And he is kind of finicky about what he likes. And that's pretty cool as well.
Yes, I might add that if Luca Turin is listening to this podcast, he is very important. It's like pivotal to my starting of the company.
Really?
Yes. I don't think I would be so deep in the rabbit hole if I didn't read his book, that Perfume Guide.
Mm-hmm.
I studied so much. It was entertaining. It's also because it's also very convenient. You just read and keep on reading,
Mm-hmm.
and entertaining, and also it's easy for me to read the book and then sitting in front of the computer and do some research and see if I could find that perfume that he has given 4-star or 5 stars.
Yeah.
So I try my best to smell all the 5 stars perfume and try to understand why it was great. And I have a kind of a good understanding of the things that he liked, and also why certain perfumes are considered masterpieces or very great. So yeah, it really helped. And I believe, I've talked to Josh Meyer too. I believe that Luca Turin was very important to him too.
Really? Wow. That's really interesting. When someone that big in the perfume world, like I said, like anyone who is into perfume on even like kind of an entry level should know who Luca Turin is. And when he ranks a fragrance that you had a very big part in creating that highly, that's really cool. Because as I know so many people, when Luca Turin gives 4 and 5 star ratings, I know people who have to try it because they trust his word so much.
Yes. As a perfume house, it has an extra level of meaning. For a review that he has given 5 star, it could literally change the fate of the of the perfume house.
Yeah.
I'm speculating. I think if they didn't give Andy Tower that perfume 5 star, I would not think he would be that successful that quickly.
I've actually heard a few people talk about that, because he is kind of credited, and I'm not taking away from Mr. Tower's ability, but a lot of people will say that he gave L'air du Desert Marocain a 5 star, and that really put it on people's radar, and a lot of people went out and actively sought it out, and a lot of people really love it, and that is like by far his big seller from his house. Now, whether that's because it is his greatest perfume or whether it's more because Luca Turin gave it a 5 star, either way, a lot of people really, really love it. And, it's really cool. It kind of shows what the right review can do for your fragrance house.
Yes, coincidentally, I also met Andy Tower at the award show.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we talked briefly, and it's interesting. Because he bottles and packages his perfume all by himself. When I first shook his hand, I was a little bit surprised by how rough his hand was, because his hand was as rough as a carpenter's hand.
Really?
Yes, it's like because he really enjoys doing everything by himself. He told me one of the reasons because in Switzerland everything is very expensive.
That's true.
He wouldn't want to hire someone to bottle, but not because of that. I think he really enjoyed bottling perfumes himself. But he told me there is exception, and it's that perfume, the Moroccan Air perfume, that has to be bottled by a company because he just couldn't handle the sales of it.
Wow.
So I think, I'm just guessing, I think a majority of his sales, goes to the Moroccan Air perfume.
I would agree with you. Just from what I see online, when I see people talking about Tower, 90% of the time it's about L'air du Desert Marocain. And anyone who's friends with him on Facebook, like he's quite generous with his friend base on Facebook. Like almost every day he's posting pictures of him in the lab, him bottling, him packaging, him autographing. And I like that. I think that just the great spirit of like the DIY independent perfumer or DIY independent anything, I always have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, it's amazing that he's very humble and he's very enthusiastic doing what he loves for, I think, almost 10 years now. Right?
Yeah, he's also famous for being just, like a super nice guy, and interacting with his fans and followers as well, which again, I think is really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Victor, because you're probably one of, if not the only person on the Fragcast so far that doesn't actually have like an active reviewing channel on YouTube, give us a little bit of sense of your perfume taste, some of your favorite houses or notes or perfumers or specific fragrances, whatever, just so the people listening can kind of get a sense of your taste. Or, you kind of mentioned recently being really taken by Le Labo. It kind of opened your eyes. Just tell us a little bit about, your perfume journey so far.
Right. Okay, so Le Labo is my favorite house because it opened the door for me. It kind of catalog like a catalyst. Now I would not say I love all their perfumes, but they are important. I pay attention to their releases.
Okay.
The other house that I really like is Homage, because I personally like very complex and rich perfumes.
Okay.
My favorite perfume is actually Lanvin's Arpège. It's a floral perfume, which is just beautiful.
It's a long time since I've smelled it, but I believe it's a very classic feminine floral aldehyde, is it not?
Yes, I really like aldehydes. And I also like ambiguous floral scents.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like a floral scents that I can immediately tell, oh, it's rose. It's really something. I kind of like the blend. And it is very interesting, and it's a classic to me.
Yeah, it's definitely a genre, that in the kind of classic floral aldehyde genre, that one definitely sticks out because it's just a fragrance that has just been done over and over and over and over for decades and decades and decades by hundreds of different fragrance houses. And that one is definitely something that stands out, that does get a lot of attention. There is a huge cult following for that, for sure.
Yes, I think I've read on Wikipedia saying Arpège is one of the 5 best-selling perfumes in history.
Really? Wow. That's interesting. I'm sure as well. And another thing in the genre is, up there with Chanel's number 5, which is kind of like the more commercial side. Like Arpège has never really been a household name, has it? Or Lanvin for that. But that's interesting. I had no idea about that. But
I think it was pretty big until maybe the 70s.
Right, when a lot of the other houses started doing the same thing, I guess.
I don't know, but
all right.
Like all companies, there's ups and downs.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely, I guess it's kind of made a bit of a resurgence lately, but yeah, definitely nothing like it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, their current stuff is just
yeah, not even gonna go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so just quickly for some people listening that might be new into the fragrance world or might not be overly into indie fragrances yet, how would you personally describe indie perfume? As opposed to niche, which, indie, I guess, is kind of a subgenre of niche, but how would you more specifically set apart indie perfume than niche perfume?
I have thought about that question quite a bit, and I think only recently I have an answer for myself. I think that the difference between niche and indie is the perfumer, which I think that indie perfume houses, the perfumer is self-taught.
Okay.
Perfumery by herself. But for a niche, the perfumer is a professional perfumer, but he just happened to work for a perfume house which distribution is smaller.
All right, that's a really interesting take. So kind of the idea that if you just kind of pick it up and do it yourself, you self-taught, you're an indie perfumer.
And that is why you can tell if a perfume is indie or niche.
Okay.
A professional perfumer could work for a niche perfume house or a designer house.
Mm-hmm.
They just follow the brief. But for some reason, the perfume have a certain style. They might have access to certain ingredients that regular indie perfumers would not have.
Right. Okay.
They might have some trade secrets or something like that, so that maybe the perfume smells smoother or more commercial.
So yeah, so they're kind of using decades of corporate or business know-how to make these mass marketable, very mainstream fragrances. And not everything mainstream is awful, of course, but it's definitely more of a marketing thing rather than a expression kind of thing, if you will.
Yes. All the perfumes so far in my house were made by indie perfumers, designed by indie perfumers, and they are very distinct.
Yes, I have tried everything from your house so far. Most of them only very briefly, in the midst of trying dozens and dozens of other things. I have tried bat as well as rhinoceros more than the others. And both of them, just like, as soon as I smelled them, I was like, wow, there is nothing like this I have ever smelled. And very recently, I tried bat. Eugene had a bottle or has a bottle of it. And he was like raving about it. He's like, oh, this stuff is so good. You got to try it. You have to try it. And I sprayed it. I was like, wow, this is just so weird. I've just never smelled anything like it. But at the same time, I found it to be a pretty approachable fragrance if you're kind of open-minded, if you're not put off by, slightly less orthodox combinations. I found it to be a really approachable fragrance and, very wearable.
Yes, if you remove all the concepts, the cave, if you just melt it without any prior knowledge of the marketing or it's a vetiver perfume.
Yeah.
If you can wear very earthy, dirty vetiver, then it's basically bad. With some interesting fruity notes, unexpected fruity notes like bananas in the perfume.
Yeah, that's what I remember, just being like totally thrown by. There's a little bit of florals in there as well, I believe, but just like the really earthy, the damp earthiness of it. I was like, wow, this is just so interesting. I really enjoyed it quite a lot.
It was very interesting when Alan Covey developed BAT. I remember when I received the first mods, she sent me 6 or 7 prototypes, and they are all very different, which I really appreciate because there are some perfumers that I work with, they would send me almost the same mod with only very minute differences.
Okay.
But she sent me very drastically different mods. And,
wow.
And I remember picking I remember smelling one that smelled exactly like a cave. I was laughing out loud. I was just literally laughing when I smelled it. I said, this is crazy. And I show it to my coworkers because right now I still have a daytime job.
Yeah.
I show it to my coworkers and they say, wow, what is this? This is crazy. This smells like a cave. And I had to make a decision, like, should I use this as the main direction? And I said, okay, I bit the bullet and went with it. So we developed it 6 more. We have 6 more revisions.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And we keep refining it until we reached the 7th revision, and I said, I think we are regressing. We're not progressing. And
Okay.
I think let's pick one that is the final. And that was very difficult. And I remember I picked 6B.
All right.
Yeah, that's the final version. And Alan said, yeah, sure, why not? And I was so skeptical. I didn't know what to do. Should I release this? I mean, we have worked on it for so long. Of course, we have to release it. But I was like, I have no idea what other people would think, because I myself have never smelled anything like this.
Yes, nor have I.
Yeah, it's just very unexpected, and I didn't know what people would think. But anyway, I launched it, right? And I was very surprised by the feedback. First is there are lots of people who are interested in bats itself. So there were quite a few buys on when it was released.
Just for the name and the association. Just for the name,
yes.
Okay.
And I also think that some people already know about Ellen's work.
Okay.
So they have a taste of her work, and they just find it too irresistible, and they have to buy. And so, I have some blind buys. That's awesome, and I make some money. But then it's the reviewers that surprised me most. I sent bats to a reviewer in Fragrantica. We are friends, but he wasn't so enthusiastic about my initial 3 review perfumes.
Okay.
But for bat, he was so amazed by it. I asked him, "Do you like it?" And he replies, "Like? Oh my goodness, I love this." And he was, I remember it was around Christmas. I think around Christmas Day. And it's like, "Oh, I'm wearing it to Christmas." And
really?
And it's like, I'm having Christmas dinner, but I'm writing a review of it. It's so amazing. So I think that is the first perfume that ever got 2 reviews simultaneously by Fragrantica staff, because I sent that to another reviewer. I was told that person, I think Jody, sorry, I forgot her last name. It was Jody. She likes Alan Covey's work, and I talked to Alan, say, whom should I send my sample to? And she suggested Jody. So okay, I sent it to Jody. I've already sent it to her, but the other person, Miguel, so I also want to write a reviews too. So and they said let's have a dual review of a perfume. Yeah, so yeah, it's unprecedented. I'm
wow. Yeah, that's great. Innovative, unique, great kind of local homegrown fragrance. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's just like Alan told me. She wrote in an email, it's like, this is like all the stars align together, no ended. It's quite interesting because Alan herself, she's a professor, and she studies bats.
Yeah.
So she knows bat very well, and she's a very accomplished perfumer. And in fact, she approached me, and she says, like, I wanted to do a bat perfume for you. I say, okay.
Wow.
Why would I refuse? So, and yeah, and how it began.
That's very interesting. We're going to touch on that in a couple questions from now, because it is a really interesting story that I didn't know much about. But before that, I want you to tell the listeners who might not be overly familiar with Zoologist a little bit more about it. Just tell us, when you found it. You've already kind of mentioned when it was founded, but where you found it, what the backstory is to it, and just kind of tell us a little bit about your releases and the whole concept of the Zoologist and, the animals, which is really interesting because it's not really anything that's ever been done before in, you know, the kind of indie world now, where there's literally indie houses just popping up day after day after day after day. It seems like a really obvious, but at the same time, something that's never been done. So tell us just a little bit more about Zoologist and your fragrances.
I came up with the name Zoologist, or the concept is, it has something to do with my job again, because I learned a 3D software called ZBrush, and it allows you to sculpt very detailed 3D objects. And at that time, my company has a 3D printer, and you can print 3D objects with that printer. And it, you know, because the company that I'm working for, they also make figurines for kids. So they have to do prototypes. So there is an access with the 3D printer, and I was itching to, you know, test the printer, and I said, okay, what if I make a perfume stopper, you know, the cap with an animal figurehead?
Okay.
That would be interesting. And that is actually that planted the seed. And later I found out it was really expensive and impractical to make the figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh, maybe I can just, you know, create a line just about animals itself. And the perfumes that also helped me, you know, create this line is Q's Original Musk. I really like that perfume, and it's like very furry and animalic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very floral. It almost smells like a monkey cage next to some bunch of flowers. I really like it. So I've done some research about animal musk. There's castoreum from beaver, and there's leather, there's civet, there's hyrax, and all those things. Now I think maybe I can create a line that celebrates those individual musk.
Mm-hmm.
So the first perfume is beaver because it has castoreum. And I also think beaver, just the name itself, is just so crazy. Like,
well,
why not?
it's very provocative, isn't it? You know, when you just say beaver, or I want to smell like a beaver, or, you know, it just instantly brings up sexual imagery as well, doesn't it?
Yes, but at the same time, I'm very serious about the scent. I'm not going for.
Oh no, so, I don't mean to imply that at all. But
I mean, that was the surprise. I really wanted to be professionally made perfumes. That maybe it might bring a joke, you know, it might be a joke, but I want people to say, okay, so this is castoreum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wearing a castoreum themed perfume, or this is, you know, some kind of leathery scent. So it is rhinoceros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can talk about the name itself. I think zoologist, the name is someone who knows the animal very well. They studies the animal. So when you smell a like beaver or panda, and then you immediately have some association.
Mm-hmm.
I think the name of a perfume is important. I think I do not like to have a perfume with a name just like Sensual Musk or some romance in Paris. I think it helps, but it doesn't tell you what you might smell.
Yeah, that's a great statement. I totally agree. You know, just pour homme. You know, okay, it's going to be a bit masculine, but what's in it? And that's a really interesting point, because when you say my new scent is called Panda, I'm going to think of, you know, oriental notes. I'm going to think of exotic, delicate, light, soft notes like that. Yeah, that's a very good point. And it does seem that unless you're just blatantly naming your fragrance after the notes in it, which there's nothing wrong with, to be honest, but you're not really going to get a sense of what is in the note. And that's kind of an interesting concept there.
And I think people who are fans of zoologists, they enjoy the fun.
Yeah.
There's some fun smelling the perfumes.
Mm-hmm.
they have somehow some expectation of what the smell would be. Like bats, I think a lot of people find it very interesting because it does smells like a cave.
Mm-hmm.
For panda, people will say, okay, what would panda smell like? And panda, it's a Chinese. I use a lot of Chinese ingredients like osmanthus, bamboo, mandarin, and to represent the habitat of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
So people find it interesting to smell the
Yeah.
perfume.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the creative process of making a new scent. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be specifically about Zoologist, but because you are, right front center stage for, the perfume industry, you're going to know more about this. So it doesn't specifically have to be about making one of your fragrances, but just talk to us about what happens. Getting a perfumer, getting concepts, names, notes, revisions, final product, marketing, promotion, etc., etc. Just kind of walk us through that a bit. And I know it's a big, big, big question, but just kind of give us the basics.
Right. So when I first started, I only knew 2 perfumers, but later through them, I knew more perfumers through their circles of friends. And as I find more perfumers to help me, the most important thing is to understand their style.
Okay.
So I would get a sample set from them, to have a good understanding of their style.
So things like they've already done for other houses.
Yes. So,
Okay.
for example, when I asked Shelley Weddington for help to design a scent, when I smelled her perfumes, they were very feminine.
Okay.
They are very kind of bombastic in a way. So
Okay.
I kind of know what her style was. So when we were collaborating, I actually asked her, what kind of animals would you want to do? Like for the initial 3, I already knew what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the next series, I said, I actually want to ask you, which animal do you want to make? I have
Okay.
some suggestions, and she suggested some, and eventually we just decided on hummingbird because it's a
Okay.
floral scent, and I know that she is very good at doing florals. So yeah, the first step is to understand the style. The next step is kind of like a collaboration process. I would send her the perfumers a mood board. A mood board is like a collage of images that I think the perfume would smell like,
Okay.
because it's very abstract. I can write in paragraph what it smells like, but I know that I will not get the same. I will not get the perfumes in my head. In fact, it would never happen. So I would rather have a comfort zone for each other, that okay, that perfume would smell like that. So I'll send her a mood board. Okay, I want it to be floral about certain kind of flowers. You're a hummingbird, you get nectars, you fly around, so it's plenty of flowers everywhere. So that's the process. And then they will send me prototypes or mods. Then we'll refine something, and she will send me the notes. Usually the perfumer will send me just the mod without saying anything.
Okay.
So not be influenced by the words. Then I'll pick one. Okay, so I like this because of it's strong, it's interesting. I don't like this because of this and that reason. And after that, they will send me the notes. So this is what you have been smelling. So we go from that. Okay, oh, I see. So let's remove vetiver. Let's remove certain things.
Okay.
And we doing the revisions until the perfume is done.
That's really interesting. I'm just so far removed from the actual creative process of perfume that I just don't even know where it starts. And you actually mentioned to me while we were talking before, you know, just kind of candidly talking, you mentioned that numerous fragrances from your house, you were actually approached by the perfumers, which is interesting because I picture it to be completely the opposite. I see when I picture it in my mind's eye, I always picture the house searching out the perfumers. Is that something that's rare, or is that common in the indie world?
I can only speak for myself. I don't, but I think maybe the concept zoologist is pretty interesting to some perfumers. I imagine maybe it's a creative outlet for them.
Yeah, for sure.
To do some crazy things.
Yeah.
So when I released Hummingbird, one day I just got a Facebook message from a perfumer, and that is that you guys seems to be having a lot of fun. I want in. And that's how it goes. It's like, okay, sure, why not? And she's designing a scent for me. And also there's like a perfumer that I met in Los Angeles when we were at the award show, and he's actually one of the finalists. And he emailed me and said, okay, so I saw you're one of the finalists too, and I find your company very interesting. I actually want to have a collaboration with you. And later I found out that he has done some really big brand niche perfumes.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we are still in talks, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Even just him approaching you is still pretty amazing. Even if, I who knows what'll happen, but even if nothing happens, just the fact that he has gotten in touch with you, I think is really cool. And it, kind of shows already where Zoologist has come to.
Yes. And it's very interesting how you can tell the final product of a zoologist perfume is different from the perfumer's usual work, but you can still tell it's their work. But you can tell that they have done something very different for zoologists. So it's very fun.
So they're kind of keeping in mind what Zoologist is, but adding their own little twist kind of thing to it.
Yes, I think in fact the direction of Zoologist is molded by the perfumers.
Okay.
I have originally I thought Zoologist would be one of those good smelling kind of common niche perfume company.
Okay.
But when I got the first 3 perfumes, I knew that okay, we are going the John Waters route. It's like, yeah, it's very interesting. So the brand is now people associate zoologists to daring.
Wow.
Creative.
John Waters of the indie perfume. I like that. John Waters, if people aren't familiar, is an amazing indie film director, amongst many other things. But yeah, that's a great comparison.
Yes. Yeah. So there's no turning back. I feel like if I do not do some crazy perfumes, then it will be let people down a bit.
Yeah, you've kind of set the bar really high, beaver, rhinoceros especially. People are looking for things that are kind of pushing the envelope and animalic and outrageous. And yeah, it's interesting as well when you look at bat compared to rhinoceros, probably 2 of your more well-known fragrances. They're very, very different, but they both have very specific qualities in them that really just work, that are both very animalic, that are both very well representing of, the respective animals. And it's really interesting. And then when you throw in other things, which I have to admit I'm not as familiar with, but like Hummingbird and Panda that are softer, more floral, Perhaps I can even say more feminine leaning. It's really interesting. I think it's a very unique element or unique aspect for an indie house.
Yes, I've actually heard people calling zoologists the niche perfumes of niche.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very niche.
Yeah, it's one thing I find, not always, but often a lot of indie brands will either be like very specifically unisex or will have everything very specifically for, a certain gender. But it seems kind of like zoologists kind of just leave it open for interpretation. It's going to be like, bat. To me, when I smell bat, I can't assign gender to it at all. It's just like, it's what it is kind of thing.
Yes, you just cannot imagine whether it's for men or women. It's just, you are so taken back or away from it. It's like, just like, what is this?
Yeah. And then when I smell something like rhinoceros, it's like, this is like, to me at least, just super masculine, macho, over the top, outrageous leather. And then, you get something like panda or hummingbird that's maybe a bit more feminine. I really want to retry beaver. I've talked about it a few times with a few people recently. Like, I really want to try it again. It's just got me so interested. Just seeing where it's going and what it's doing.
Beaver it's interesting. When I first got beaver, I didn't know what to say. It's so different from what's in my mind, because I wanted almost kind of like the Q's original musk kind of scent.
Okay.
And later I talked to Chris about beaver, and he said, I knew you wanted something like this, but I would not make you that because that would be copying.
Sure.
So I do it my way. And he admitted that beaver is very avant-garde. It's very, very different. But, from a commercial point of view, when everything is so fragile, when you use all your saving to start a company, and have such outrageous scent out there, it's like, yes, you have expressed your creativity through beaver, but as a company, it's like, I want to survive.
Yeah, that's true. It might be outrageous and crazy, but is it going to sell enough to keep me in the industry? Which is a really good point. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, indie perfume houses, unless you're independently rich already, you have to make money off your perfumes or you can't put any more out.
Yeah, it is true. It's very challenging. I must admit that I had so much fantasy when I started the company. I remember when I first launched the company, the website. I was thinking, oh, what happens if someone buy all 3 perfumes at the same time? I might not have a big enough box to ship it. And I ordered some empty boxes that would fit 3 perfumes. It's like it never happened. No one would ever buy 3 perfumes from me at the same time. Eventually it happened. But so, yeah, I have fantasy about my company.
Sure.
I talked to my coworkers and I said, I only need to sell that many bottles and I will break even.
Okay.
And I said, America is so huge. North America is so huge. There are so many people. I don't think I will have problems selling these small number of perfumes. You better think again. I don't think you will sell that many in such a short period of time. And it's true. It took me a year at least to to finally get off the ground.
Wow. Yeah, that's another thing people probably don't realize. The average fragrance lover, when they get into indie perfume, they don't realize that these indie perfume houses don't have the budget of Creed. They don't have millions of dollars at their disposal. These are men and women that work day jobs, that just love perfume and want to, you know, have some kind of addition or some kind of, you know, impact on that community, which is, you know, really big. And it's one of the reasons I kind of, you know, I'll even say go out of my way to support indie perfume, because I think it's kind of like the backbone in a way, in the sense that they're the ones doing different, innovative, unique things that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for their small, devout fan bases.
Yes, and I need to mention that I'm grateful that some of the reviewers out there on YouTube that I have sent samples to,
Mm-hmm.
some loved it, but some
Mm-hmm.
didn't like them. And I asked them, "Have you received my samples?" They said yes, but I don't want to review them because I personally don't like them. So they are doing me a favor, because if they receive a sample and then say bad things about it online, it might ruin an indie house.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. You know, it's the kind of thing where a small house that only sells, you know, a few thousand bottles for a single release, compared to a designer house that will potentially sell literally millions of bottles at a much bigger profit rate as well. You know, if I go on YouTube and talk trash about, you know, the new one from Burberry, if 1,000 people watch my video, and I'm not trying to influence people, I'm just trying to be honest. So if I talk trash about this new designer fragrance and a few people decide from my review that they're not going to support it or whatever, you know, Burberry isn't going to miss, or their parent company isn't going to miss those couple $100 that they're not going to get. But if I talk trash about an indie fragrance house, and, you know, the 300 people that watch that review, because a lot of the YouTube guys know and girls know that reviewing indie is not really a big numbers thing. So, you know, you talk about, you know, money in perfume, you know, I don't know if I should say money in reviewing, but, you know, the figures in reviewing, subscribers and views and things like that, reviewing indie fragrances is a really small number. But if I review an indie perfume and I'm like, you know, this sucks, it's terrible, it's awful, I don't like it, it's too this, it's too that. If 300 people watch it and, you know, a lot of people go, ooh, I've never heard of this house, but man, this makes me not interested at all. That's, you know, a lot of clientele that small house is going to miss just because I don't like it. And I have to say, I do agree and respect that as well. Not being overly critical, and because it's, you know, in my opinion, for an indie house, I'd rather just not mention it than go on in depth about how horrible something is.
Yes, like for example, Dior Sauvage, like we can do, people would say, oh, this is not good and that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people out there knew that there are reviewers on YouTube talking about perfumes?
Oh.
I
Oh.
don't think a lot of people, like a casual, you know, perfume buyers
Yeah.
will know that there are such reviews are out there.
Not at all. You think like the biggest reviewers on YouTube are kind of like 20,000 subscribers plus. 20,000 is like nothing. That's like a very small fraction of 1% of the people in the world that actually buy perfume. So yeah, it's a very small number.
Exactly.
But yeah, you know, big houses like Dior, whatever, they're not really going to feel that impact.
No, but indie houses, yeah, it's going to be devastating.
Without a doubt, yeah. You know, there's fragrance houses that I know, indie fragrance houses that reviewers will talk about, and they'll end up sending them a lot of patronage. Like imaginary authors just kind of blew up in the YouTube community maybe about 3 years ago, and I really think a lot of Josh's success was through the YouTube community. A lot of YouTubers were talking up imaginary authors before I saw it being talked about many other places. And I think Josh kind of acknowledges that as well. And, you know, he sends samples to YouTube reviewers. As far as I know, being in Canada and living in Indonesia before, it's kind of like for American indie houses, even American niche or designer houses are known for sending bottles and samples. But if you live in Canada, basically outside of America, no one will send you anything.
Yes, and shipping is just insane.
Oh, geez, yeah. I, you know, bought online, you know, both in Canada and to Indonesia, and that's kind of what put me off so much in Indonesia is like, you know, I'm gonna have to pay. I was actually looking at Mr. Towers fragrances. Myself and another guy in the Jakarta fragrance community were gonna buy some towers, and I don't know. This was a couple years ago, so they were like $120 for the 50 ml, like standard price, right? But shipping was going to be like $30 per bottle.
Shipping, is very important. It you know, it's like I was struggling with the shipping cost because you know, I was shipping from Canada, and Canada Post is just so expensive. It's just ridiculous.
It is.
Right now, I ship a perfume to any European countries. I charge $25, and it sounds very, very expensive to those people in, you know, in Europe. But I have to tell you, I actually subsidize $50.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I initially didn't want to ship anything outside North America. But I thought later I thought it through, because I also wholesale my perfumes to shops, and usually shops, the standard wholesale price is around 50%.
Okay.
So whenever I ship something to Europe, I just consider I wholesale a bottle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that makes me feel better. Otherwise, you know, I cannot bear, you know, I subsidizing $40, $50.
Wow.
So, yeah, but I still receive emails was like, why your shipping is so expensive. It's like, there's nothing I can do, but I couldn't tell that was subsidizing $40.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Just shipping, like I'll do swaps on Fragrantica and base notes, and just sending a bottle to someone in the US with tracking from Canada it's like $16 or $17, which is a lot of money just to literally go across the border. And I've tried swapping with people. Well, I have swapped with people in Europe, but my standard practice now is, you know, it's too expensive for tracking. I'll show you that I have an outstanding rating, and I'll take a picture after it's been stamped, but I can't spend $45 for tracking to send $100 bottle of perfume to, you know, Norway. It's so outrageous. But yeah, it's one thing probably a lot of people again don't realize.
Well, yes, just my monthly credit card bill on shipping costs is like over $1,000.
Oh, really? Wow. I can't even fathom that.
I collected air miles points very quickly. So.
There you go. Okay, tell us a little bit about another part of creating fragrances that I, again, will admit I don't know much about. Tell me about raw materials and chemical compounds. Basically just basics about mixing and levels of quote-unquote notes that we smell.
Well, the perfumers, when I say I ask a perfume, could you create a magnolia or a certain scent or a sandalwood blend? It's easy to say, okay, I just put sandalwood, but often it's not the case. They have to create a special blend for me, and there's many different things put together to create just one note to the people's nose. and often there's like different synthetic materials and some natural materials put together. So I think for a majority of the perfumes out there, I would imagine synthetic versus natural is 80 to 20%.
Really, that high?
Yes. Well, a lot of people will always think that naturals is better because it's natural. Synthetic is, it's like when we usually have the association when we say, oh, it smells so synthetic.
Yeah.
If a perfume is done professionally or properly, you shouldn't smell the synthetic elements that easily. Yeah, just a lot of accords that you're smelling are just synthetic blends.
Yes, that's a very good point. I've actually become very conscious on my channel now about using the word synthetic when I should be using the word cheap or, poorly made. A lot of people think just because they're, high-end, reputable, mainstream brands, I don't want to mention any specific, but there's a few that definitely come out that claim to use 100% all natural fragrance notes in their fragrances. And, even going into like the high-end boutiques and shopping malls, like in Toronto even, the sales just like, oh, yeah, we only use 100% real oud. We use 100% real sandalwood. And it's like, I know you don't, so I don't know why you're saying that.
Yeah. And also, the perfume companies can name whatever they want as long as you buy it, to be honest. Yes. There's the synthetic lemon scent, but you can say it's from Sicily.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just totally up to them to name it the way they want. But because they probably buy from the same aroma chemical companies, they buy the same thing from them anyway. So they just have to market it better.
That's wow, such a great point. Yeah. So their Sicilian lemon is the same note that is used in other fragrances that could be labeled as, Amalfi or something, or another region, or it's basically just produced in a factory in France or in Western Europe, but they're just taking it and associating it with what they want you to envision, which kind of brings up my next point, is what are we really smelling when we sniff a perfume? So we've kind of talked about aroma chemicals and synthetics already, but so like, for example, a few notes that are really big right now, or maybe were bigger a little while ago, leather and oud. And I've heard in so many places that when you, and I believe it, when I smell leather or oud in a fragrance, that's not what it is. It's something that smells like that we're told is an oud note or a leather note. And I've actually heard, and the reason I use leather and oud is because I've heard as well that leather and oud notes, quote unquote, are actually interchangeable. So things that smell like oud to us can also often smell like leather, and vice versa.
I know that for leather, people cannot tincture leather. They do not tincture leathers anymore. They are mostly birch tar or some other chemical blends that make you think like you're smelling leather.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a very good example is Lily of the Valley. A lot of times people would say, they have Lily of the Valley, but you might know that you cannot get that scent from the flower naturally. You have to blend certain things together to make a Lily of the Valley accord that people say, okay, so this is Lily of the Valley. So a lot of perfumers, they would spend time building an accord.
Mm-hmm.
Lily of the Valley accord or certain accord. Like right now, one of my perfume has masala in it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no immediate masala blend. You have to build that accord yourself. And the perfumer would spend some time building it. There might be a lot of different spice and everything put together, but at the end, on Fragrantica or on the notepad, the ingredient breakdown, you just put masala.
Yeah, wow,
But it's
yeah.
things that put into it.
And obviously, there are times when those notes do come out very obvious and blatant. You know, just a few that come off the top of my head, like things when I smell jasmine, even in synthetic perfumes or, you know, not as high quality perfumes, I was like, that is unmistakably jasmine. But then, you know, like you said, and it's a good example, you know, Lily of the Valley or a lot of white florals actually I find can be very samey with the exception of jasmine. It's one of those things that usually it's just like very, very blatant, but a lot of citrus I think is kind of interchangeable. And when I see people arguing on YouTube, on Facebook, Base Notes, Fragrantica, whatever, it's like, this is definitely bergamot and it's definitely, you know, Southern Italian bergamot. Like, no, it's not. It's definitely lime. It's like, you know, it's probably not really of either, but it's just how you interpret it and how they want you to interpret it.
Yes, like, I mean, if you have ever tasted Maya lemon, it's like not as sour, it's a little bit sweet.
Yeah.
But if you start with a lemony scent and then you mix some sweetness to it, then that could become Maya lemon. But it's just a combination of two different things. And now you can say this is Sicilian, whatever, Maya lemon. So now you say, wow, this is so high quality.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, tell me about some future plans for Zoologist, some ambitions, some ideas you have working, some projects, collaborations, or anything like that.
Sure. I'll be releasing travel size perfumes.
Okay.
A lot of people, interestingly, they say, you know, I want the zoo. They want the collection, but they don't want the whole, you know, to buy the full bottles. They would rather have a little, you know, coffret of perfume. So I've been thinking about that. So I recently bought some travel size bottles, and I'm gonna release the travel size kit soon. There are about 5 different perfumes in works.
Mm-hmm.
I won't release them all together. It also depends on the speed of the perfumers.
Wow, so you've got 5 not released yet that are kind of all at some point of development.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
I can tell one is going to be by Shelley Weddington again, the perfumer of Hummingbird.
Mm-hmm.
There's one from Chris Bartlett, the one who did Beaver.
Mm-hmm.
And there are one perfumer from London, from Japan, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, it's probably that could, if I'm not mistaken, that could be his first perfume.
Really interesting.
But he has been teaching perfumery for some time. Yes. It's going to be very interesting.
Wow.
I have already received the first mod, and it is, again, it's very different from everyone else's perfume.
Wow, that's great. That's what I like to hear. So quickly, I'm sure you get this suggested all the time, and you're probably sick and tired of talking about it, but give me, and you know, you don't have to say what's coming up because it is kind of nice to keep it for a surprise, but give me some animal and note combos that you think would be fun to do or you have thought about at some point.
Yes, there is an animal that I want to do, but I don't think I'll be doing that soon. I think it's when my brand is more established.
Okay.
Then I can do the crazier ones. There's one I want to make is platypus. Because this is a strange animal. It's you know, it's kind of like a duck, but it's mammal, but it's also very primitive, and they live in water. So I'm imagining it's an aquatic but milky scent.
Really interesting. Because that's a
Yeah.
very big clash as well. You know, water, milky is very clashing.
Yes, and yes, I have received feedbacks from different perfumers all the time. They're always saying, "Why do you always suggest all those impossible chords? They are just clashing. They're just, but eventually they make it happen. So it's very interesting and challenging to them. So I guess they enjoy doing it. Uh, there are simpler ones that I want to do is koala bear,
Okay,
uh, eucalyptus scent.
of course, yeah.
Yes, I have thought about doing either polar bear or a penguin, which
Okay.
an ice accord.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of scents they now say ice, or you must have seen different flankers of certain perfumes that have the ice accord.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, so that will be an interesting angle to make
Mm-hmm.
like a polar freeze kind of opening.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, many others.
Yeah, I'm sure so many people send you, perfumers, but as well, people on Facebook or whatever social media sites. I'm sure you just get bombarded with them nonstop. But it is kind of interesting, and I like that, kind of the challenge or the creativity in coming up with an animal and what does it really smell like. Okay, so we think of a rhinoceros as smelling big and tough and leathery, but what actually would go into making something smell like a rhinoceros? And I think it's kind of interesting. It's a really good take. I'm really not into gimmicky perfumes, but I definitely think this is like something that really does work. There's man, I'm not even going to get into it. There's so many goofy, gimmicky perfume niche indie houses out there, and so many of them just come and go and come and go. But yeah, definitely this is something I see as innovative, interesting, and accurate. I like it. I think it's a really great house.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually have there are some shops in China. They actually carry my brand.
Really? Wow.
Yes, the distributor told me that it's like, oh, people are on the internet discussing about this. When is the zoo coming? When is the zoo coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do not call it a zoologist. They call it the zoo.
The zoo.
So, the zoo. they are quite excited about the brand. So
That's great. That's great. Tell us a little bit quickly before we wrap it up. Tell us where people can pick up or check out some Zoologist perfumes, where you can pick them up online, or how people can get in touch to purchase something if they're interested.
the web shop is zoologistperfumes.com.
Okay. And I will definitely link that or annotate that in the video. Is there anywhere else they're available, like locally? In Canada, I know in Toronto, they're available.
In Toronto, you can find them at Niche Essence.
And you can actually go in and try them on the spot, which is really great.
And there's also one called Man Essentials.
Oh, I didn't know you were picked up there. I've shopped with them online, but I've not actually been in the shop. Okay,
It's
great.
actually a pretty cool shop. I didn't know you can have so many different shaving cream flavors.
I'm as baby-faced as you can possibly imagine, so shopping online for men's shaving supplies is just in a whole realm I don't understand.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Just like niche perfumes, why do you need 100 bottles of niche perfumes? And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are people who have maybe 50 or 100 different shaving creams flavors. But
Oh, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a very cool shop. Check that out.
What about in the United States? Is there anywhere people can go in the United States, or should they just go directly through Zoologist Perfumes?
So far, there isn't any shops in US that carry. I've been talking to some.
Okay.
But you can also find from indiescents.com.
Okay.
Yeah. In Europe, you can find it from, damn, I do not know how to pronounce it. I think it's Lulur.
Oh, okay. I've not even heard of that one.
Yeah, they are a Polish shop, but they ship everything within Europe. So,
Oh, okay. Oh, great. And of course, I will connect all of those in the description and annotated. So if you want to check out Victor's line, do that. So thank you so much for coming on, Victor. It's been my pleasure. I wish you nothing but the best for a zoologist. It's a great house. And, I think it makes a lot of Canadian fragrance lovers and, indie fragrance lovers in general quite proud.
thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the listeners now. Give Victor some ideas for some animal and note combos. Give us some ideas, be unique, be interesting, throw some out there as well. Tell us some of your favorite indie fragrance houses or indie fragrances in general, and we'll mention your ideas on a future podcast. So again, thank you so much for Victor, and thanks for tuning in to the Fragcast.